Thank you all for being here. I wanted to allow just a little bit of extra time for folks to pile in. So this webinar will be recorded as normal, and we will share the link with you following the call. So just a quick housekeeping, but we are so excited to get started. Thank you all so much for being here. So we are 6 days out from National Voter Registration Day. Can you believe it? We have so much to get to with this presentation, including some very special guests, which we're very excited about. But before we start, we want to take a moment to commemorate the significance of this day in our nation's history. The horror of September 11th is still vividly remembered and felt by many of us. And we want to thank you for joining us here today. And also let today serve as a reminder to never forget the victims and the heroic citizens whose lives were lost this day. So thank you for being here, and never forget. And we will get into the agenda. So as we get closer to the big day, we have many partners who have participated before, and they've seen how the day goes, right? So there's a lot of celebrity chatter, there's a lot of media partnerships, there's a lot of promotion, which we love, that align with the promotion of voter registration. So on September 17th, you'll see your news feed. Everyone's talking about NVRD, and we'll be doing a lot of retweets and reposts, so we'll be looking out for your social media. So we have an exciting presentation lined up for you today with a few very special guest speakers of our own who will introduce themselves in just a few minutes. But before we get to them, just a reminder again that this webinar is being recorded. We will share the link with you after the call. On the webinar today, you'll cover the 6-day planned fundamentals. So we want to make sure that you feel well equipped to run your voter registration drive next Tuesday, and make sure that you have all of the resources that you need. National Voter Registration Day is a day that's designed to be very plug and play. We've created everything for you, so we want to make it super easy, but we want to make sure also that you have access to the resources and that you know what's available. So we will help you firm up your plans and also give you a chance to ask any questions. So this is like the home stretch. We want you to drop in your questions into the Q&A box, and the Q&A box should be right next to the chat. So if you have questions, use the Q&A box instead of the chat, and we'll get to them at the end of this call. So without further ado, we will jump into a little bit of an intro about NVRD and the plans for the big day, including our speakers. So National Voter Registration Day is 12 years old this year, yay! The day began in 2012 with the Bus Federation, and Nonprofit Vote became the managing partner in 2017. The why of this day still remains super important. 27% of Americans report not being registered to vote. And of those, 18 to 24-year-olds have a higher percentage at 42. They do not know if they're registered, and they also don't know how. So this day is about bringing access and promoting visibility, making it super easy for the information to be found, and also encouraging folks who are already registered to check their registration. It doesn't hurt. We also know that most voters vote every 4 years, so they're turning out this year, definitely. So use the day also as a messaging opportunity to remind them to check their registration status. And then lastly, we have a huge cohort of partners this year, more than we've ever had. So we're really excited about that. 152 premier partners, which are corporations and national organizations, and 5,100 community partners, which are local organizations all across this country. You guys have signed up to run voter registration drives and to receive materials, including digital materials. So we're super happy to have you on board. Thank you so much. And thank you to our generous sponsors. This holiday is not possible without the generosity of these sponsors and partners. Thank you all for being part of this big day. The financial support has allowed us to create resources for these community partners, and we've mailed out over 5,100 packages of posters and stickers to these groups across the country. So bravo, and thank you so much for the support. And now, without further ado, I would love to invite our special guest to come on camera. We're so excited to have you here to support National Voter Registration Day. This is such a huge day, being the 12th year, and it grows every single year. So thank you for being part of it. So we'll start with Alicia Reiner. She's an actor and activist. You may know her as Fig on Orange is the New Black, where she won a SAG Award, an Emmy award-winning Mrs. Marvel. She is currently filming The Diplomat. We have Linda Powell, who is an actor and has appeared in series such as Chicago Fire and Law and Order, Special Victims Unit, films including The Report and American Gangster, and recently starred on Broadway in A Beautiful Noise. She is also the vice president of SAG-AFTRA. And we have Zoe Lister-Jones, who is an actor, writer, and filmmaker, starring in series including Slip, Life in Pieces, New Girl, and directing films such as Band-Aid and How It Ends. So thank you to the three of you. I will invite you to say a few words and take it away. I'll hand it to Alicia first, and then Linda and Zoe.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I am so excited to be here with you all. This is what democracy looks like, and it is so beautiful to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here, giving your time and your energy and all you are doing to protect our democracy. And if you are all here, you know every election is critical as people make all these big decisions about who represents them, from local town councils to the White House, as well as ballot initiatives are a big one this year, and they will affect all aspects of our lives. Now, I was shocked by the statistic that in 2021, in 4 Americans reported not being registered to vote or unsure if they were registered. I just checked my voter registration again. And we cannot let that happen this year. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for helping with that. Every single vote matters. And what matters most right now is that people are actually able to cast their ballot. So thank you for all the amazing work you're doing today to prepare for National Voter Registration Day. It's going to be epic and awesome, and every day after that through the conclusion of the election. It's how we protect our freedoms, it's how we protect our democracy, and it's how we make sure that every voice is heard. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will throw it to Linda now.
Thank you, madam. Hey, everybody. It's amazing to be here. I have a confession to make. In the past couple of weeks, I've actually gotten excited about this election. And I know we've all been through some things since the last one, but I'm just witnessing so much commitment, so much enthusiasm, and frankly, just a desire amongst people to support our democracy. And that support depends on all voices being heard, which is why I'm so thankful for all of you for showing up, to put in that work, to volunteer your time the way that you're doing. There is so much at stake, but people, we are in this, and people, we are in this together. It's really sobering when you realize, I don't know if you know this, in 2020, 600,000 non-voters said that the reason that they were non-voters was because they had problems registering. Say that one more time. 600,000 people did not vote because they had problems registering. And we know that some of our elections are decided by smaller margins than that. So it's sobering, but it's also an inspiration. It's an incentive, because it's proof that the work that you're doing absolutely has the possibility of making a difference in the outcomes of races all around the country. Because when everyone votes, democracy wins. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for showing up like generations before us showed up, for doing the work, for putting yourselves out there. And I'm excited to be here. I can't wait to see the energy and enthusiasm you all bring to your communities on September 17th, National Voter Registration Day. Let's do this. Zoe Lister-Jones.
There's never been a more important time. We are at such a critical juncture in our country's history and our country's future. And everyone here today can make such a massive impact on free and fair elections and getting people who have the will to vote and make their voices heard to the polls. There will be many barriers, as we know. There are many efforts to disenfranchise, to confuse, and that is what we are all here today to put all of our time and energy into countering those efforts so that every voice can be heard, every vote can be counted, and everyone who wants to wield their power to make a difference has the power too. So I'm just here to thank you all for using your voices, for giving your time and energy so generously. The stakes have never been higher, and I just feel so much gratitude towards all of you for investing in your communities, in our country, and in our democracy. So thank you, and let's all do this together on September 17th and as we lead up to November 5th.
Awesome. You all are amazing. That was so well said, so powerful, so inspirational. Thank you so much for being part of this day. It's really important to have this representation from you all. And for our partners who do this voter registration work every year, to have this, this visibility. It's really important and shows the commitment. So thank you. And we are going to take that momentum from Alicia, Linda, and Zoe, and we are going to start talking about our plans for this year. So your 6-day plan, we are at 6 days, and that is very exciting for many of us. A few of us are brand new to this work. A few of you have done it and are veterans. So thank you to both. But we wanted to just use this as a time to review what the 6-day plan looks like in the week leading up to NVRD. So for step one, let's talk about finalizing your voter drive logistics. So on each of these steps, we've kind of mapped it out so that you have a checklist on the right side and what to remember. We'll also give you some resources that relate to each of the steps so that you are able to just click and plug and play. Again, National Voter Registration Day has created everything to be super easy for you to adopt and for you to use so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel or for you to have too much heavy lifting on your end. We want to make this super easy for you to go out and register voters. So what to remember when you're out. As a community organization, you are a trusted resource. So make sure that you are well informed and prepared. This is a big year. Education is a really, really, really important piece of this year and going out to register voters. So make sure that you feel prepared to do so. Set the expectations for your event and for your volunteers. What does that mean? So that means map out what the day should look like, from logistics for volunteers to voter registration, to returning your forms and social media and promotion, or however you plan to promote your event. Make sure that everything is thought through and do kind of a mock voter registration drive to iron out details of registering voters and accepting the forms. This way you can kind of think about all of the things that may come up and make sure that you are well prepared for it. So within your checklist, make sure that you are finalizing those logistics, reconfirming your location if you're doing a voter registration drive in a public area, maybe outside of a library or outside of a store or your organization. Just reconfirm that you have permission to do so. We don't want you to get in trouble. Make sure that you assign roles to your volunteers, especially for those of you that have big groups going out. Assigning those roles can be very powerful because those volunteers will own those roles. So if you have a volunteer who is responsible for taking photos, give them the direction for how they should take photos or how many photos they should take, be specific, as well as someone who may be collecting the voter registration forms and processing them. Just make sure that all of the components of the plan have a volunteer or an owner attached to them. And make sure that you have your materials ready. So if those are digital materials, as in you're registering voters on an iPad, for example, make sure that iPad is charged, you have extra battery. We don't want your iPad to die when you're out in the field registering voters. Make sure you have a backup. And if you are registering voters through paper forms, you can consult your local elections office. Just make sure you do it prior to Tuesday, and they can provide you with voter registration forms in multiple languages. Sometimes if you are requesting a large number of forms, you do have to request that in advance, since they have to process it. So if that's something that you need to do, maybe today is the best day to do that, to make sure you have enough forms in hand. And here are the key resources that will help you for step one. So from digital posters all the way through your event checklist, your field toolkit, and down to the voting FAQ, these tools and resources are really designed to just make it super easy for you, keep it all in one place. Of course, again, this webinar is being recorded, so this deck will be shared along with the recording, so you'll have access to all of these slides. And now we'll move on to step two. I do encourage you to drop your questions into the Q&A box rather than the chat so that we can process them at the end of the presentation. So for step two, get informed. Again, I want to reiterate that this is a big year where a lot of voters will be out, which means that there are a lot of questions that folks will ask. So it's important to make sure that you have all of the details on voting laws, deadlines, and what's on the ballot in your state, because again, you are the trusted resource. So voters are looking to you to see how confident you are, how well informed you are, how educated you are. Remember to stay fully nonpartisan, but also make sure you have all of your facts and details. But for this year, we have over 80,000 positions on the ballot in November, and fewer than 500 of those are at the federal level. So this is a really great opportunity to emphasize the importance of down ballot elections when you're out speaking to voters. This is also a great opportunity if voters are not sure who they're voting for like the presidential election, which obviously is getting all of the media attention right now. You can remind them that this is also a big year for elections, local elections, and make sure you are informed about what are the local elections that will be happening in your state. As far as your checklist, make sure to review the state-by-state guidelines. So we have provided those in the key resources. Those state-by-state guides are a super powerful tool. I encourage you all to bookmark them to your phones, to your tablets, and to just have it ready. You can. It's a resource that we've created year after year, and you go in, you select your state, and it gives you all the dates and deadlines, as well as any limitations that you may have on registered voters and important things that you know. That tool was created in partnership with the FEC, Fair Election Center. And we use that tool, we promote it very heavily because it's a really, really great resource to have on hand. Make sure that you are verifying the most up-to-date information with your local election office. So use that state guide as a reference, but if there's anything that may have changed, you may want to check with your local election office just to be sure. And ensure that your volunteers have full understanding of educational resources. So what that means is give them the full list of what's available, but maybe think about assigning, when you assign the volunteers to different roles, give them the most relevant resources so that they don't feel overwhelmed with their materials. So some of the key resources here, we have links to past webinars. So if you have time between now and Tuesday, I encourage you to check those out and to take some notes from those webinars to maybe get inspired or maybe get some ideas from other partners and ways that you can engage and run your voter registration drive. There's also the state-by-state guides, and we've also added a trusted voting resources tab to our website, which lists all of our election official partners as the trusted resources in voter registration. So that includes vote.gov, the National Association for Secretaries of State, that's a tongue twister, and then the National Association for State Election Directors. So all of the go-to resources are listed on our website under Trusted Voting Resources. And now for step three. So continue to finalize your comms plan and talking points. And I say continue to because we have started this conversation with many of you in our previous webinars. We've talked through how to create your comms plan, how to use the comms strategy guide, and then thinking about your talking points. So all of these materials have been created for you already. So it's nothing that you have to create or think through. But some of the things that you should remember are staying nonpartisan. In all of your comms with voters and volunteers, make sure the conversations are geared towards staying nonpartisan. That will be particularly difficult this year because so many voters are impassioned and very excited about the elections, especially the presidential elections. They have lots of opinions, but your goal is to just register voters or to get voters to update their voter registration forms. So as much as possible, deter and deflect the conversation all the way to always to come back to staying nonpartisan. What that means is reviewing your talking points in advance to make sure that you're well prepared. You will need to be well prepared in a federal election year because there are more voters that are turning out, and there'll be more questions to answer. And along with that, you can research the demographics and key issues of your voter drive location and prep your talking points accordingly. So one thing that you can do, because it can be difficult to manage all of the conversations that happen when you're out registering voters, is assign different volunteers to different talking points. So if you have a voter who wants to talk to you about youth issues, as an example, someone who's maybe 18, has never registered to vote before, has never voted, and is super unsure about the entire process, maybe you have a specific volunteer who is equipped with talking points specifically for youth voters, that when that person comes over, you can direct them to them. The same person can also be in charge of local issues, and then you have another volunteer, depending on how many you have, that's assigned to another set of talking points. This way, volunteers may not feel overwhelmed again by trying to remember all of the talking points, and they can rehearse very specific talking points so that you guys can create a system that makes it manageable for everyone. And I just want to emphasize here and make sure you review the comms resources in advance to have those talking points easily accessible, easily available, but just make sure you stay nonpartisan in those conversations. For your key resources here, we have a comms activation timeline. So that kind of gives you an overview of start to finish when you're planning your NVRD event. If you are maybe doing some last minute planning, that's totally fine, but use that timeline and try to truncate everything to do as much as possible in the next 6 days so that you are prepared on September 17th. We have the comms strategy guide in there, which we've reviewed before on past webinars, which we'll share with you. The comms strategy guide is an amazing tool that our team has created that kind of outlines everything that you need to know around talking about National Voter Registration Day and promoting it. We also have messaging tips, tricks, and tactics, talking points that are very clear, as well as sample messaging, and then tips for talking to reporters. Since many of you are doing local voter registration drives, there are reporters that may be coming to your event or may reach out to you asking if they can attend. So we have some tips ready for you in case you are speaking to the media about National Voter Registration Day. So I just want to encourage you, continue to drop your questions into the Q&A. And as we wrap up this section, we'll get to the Q&A. So promoting on social media is step 4. Many of you are doing voter registration drives that are accompanied by big social media pushes. We're actually already seeing many of those. So continue to use the hashtag #VoteReady or National Voter Registration Day and tag us so we can see it and we can repost it and retweet it. It's so great to see all of the local League of Women Voters chapters starting to build momentum around their events. And then there's a lot of college campuses. So that all of that is awesome. Continue to tag us so that we can make sure to give you some shine, but we love to see it. So review and utilize the social media tools that we've created for you. Our team has created memes and they are hilarious. They're super engaging and graphical and funny. There's a lot of engaging content within the tools that we have already. So we want you to, again, don't feel like you have to start from scratch. All of this is already done for you. And you're basically just like picking and choosing what you want to use in your social media. But if you are creating your content organically or from scratch, make sure that you are creating very engaging content that is graphic heavy and visual. So you can take some notes from what we've created and maybe that'll inspire you to create your own. You can use the NVRD logo as well as your own logo for your organization, but just make sure that it's very engaging and looks good for social media. And then continue to cross-promote NVRD resources. Many of you are already doing this, which is great. Thank you so much. Many of you are retweeting and reposting our NVRD resources that we're posting to Twitter and Instagram. So continue to do that. But then also, if you have other organizations or local community members that are engaged, you can also send it to them and encourage them to cross-promote. The purpose of cross-promotion is just making sure that we're amplifying the resources that are available and also sending voters directly to the right sources so that they can register to vote and that they have the encouragement to actually go out and vote on election day. In terms of drafting your social media posts, I implore you to do that if you can. Many platforms allow you now to just kind of schedule a post. So if you plan to do a few of those, there are a few tools that you can use like TweetDeck and Hootsuite. I think those still exist. And those will allow you to schedule multiple posts at a time. So if you have a big social media plan, you can use tools like that. And then also ensure that you have a volunteer that owns social media. So just designate one particular person who is managing your organization's account and can do retweets, cross-promoting the NVRD resources, or if you're out taking photos, make sure you have permission, but also have a designated volunteer that can do those social media posts for you so that you don't have to stop registering voters to go like post on social media. And here are the key resources relevant to social media promotion. We have brand guidelines, we have the social media assets, which I mentioned before, as well as the guidelines. So this is going to include all of the memes and how to use those memes, how to stay nonpartisan, etc. We give a lot of those tips in our comms strategy guide as well. And let's imagine that we are at Wednesday. We've all done amazing voter registration drives on Tuesday, and it is the day after. What is next? Well, as we know, the work does not stop. So after this, we'll be doing some reporting and surveys. So you'll hear from us to make sure that we improve the holiday. And those will be due on October 1st. So you'll get those via email. We have some office hours coming up, so you'll have an opportunity again today to ask any questions that can help firm up your plan for Tuesday. But we also have these office hours. The last office hour is on this Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. So you can hop on and ask any questions. National Voter Registration Day, of course, we know is next Tuesday. And then we have some upcoming webinars, including Democracy for All, Accessible and Inclusive Voter Engagement, which is led by Nonprofit Vote, our managing partner. And then we have a GOTV webinar on October 16th on how we're getting voters to the polls in November. So that's a really exciting one as well. You can register for both. And lastly, sign up for the civic holidays if you haven't already. We are handing over the torch to National Voter Education Week on October 7th, and then Vote Early Day and Election Hero Day. So I've included a QR code to the right of the screen so you can hold up your phone and take a screenshot of that. And that link will send you to the Civic Holidays website where you can sign up for all the civic holidays in one fell swoop. So again, this deck will be shared with you, so you'll have the link there, but you can also sign up at civicholidays.org. So, second to last chance, I'll give you another reminder to drop in your questions into the Q&A, and we are going to pivot to that part of the conversation now. This conversation, we want to hear from you. So as we're thinking about these next 6 days, what questions do you have for us? How can we help you to build up your plans and talk to us? So I'm going to look at the questions that we've received already and raise a few of these. So where can we get voter registration forms? I see that as an anonymous attendee. That's a great question. So again, you want to go to your local election office and request those forms. So they can provide you with multiple forms or very few forms, whatever you need, and they can also provide them to you in multiple languages. Our organization does not provide voter registration forms because we're a national organization. So it's best to go directly to your local election office to get those forms and get those materials. But again, I just want to reemphasize, if you are doing a big voter registration drive, requesting those forms can sometimes take a day or two from the Board of Elections or your county of elections. So I would encourage you to go today to make that request if you have like maybe more than 150 forms that you want to request, just to allow them enough time to process it. Thank you. How do you convince people, this is Kyle, to register to vote if they don't see incentives to do so, i.e. if they are comfortable with their situation and don't see the need? That's a great question, Kyle. I think your best approach there is to lean into the fact that you are a trusted resource. So complacency is something, and apathy is something that we deal with when talking to voters. And that can be something that's very troublesome in kind of pushing them past just registering to vote. So incentives are a big thing, and obviously we don't want to necessarily incentivize folks to vote, but I think you have to dig a little bit deeper to find out what their motivation is. Understand where they connect to community, and maybe use that as an entry point to have the conversation. So sometimes, you know, this may be someone you're speaking to who cares a lot about gun violence in the community, or childcare, or housing. Figure out what their issue is, and then a nonpartisan approach to that conversation. I found that when speaking to youth voters, it was really, really impactful to help them bridge those connections, because a lot of times people don't know. So if you can find an issue that they are really passionate about and that they resonate with, you can help them make the connection to how that issue relates to elected officials and in government positions. So I hope that answered your question. I have a question from an anonymous attendee. I'm a seated election official in Maryland. Will this present a conflict of interest for holding outreach events? Elected officials can absolutely hold outreach events. You just have to stay nonpartisan. So you're encouraging folks to register to vote, but you're not telling them who to vote for. They may perceive that as partisan, but the messaging around it is actually nonpartisan since you are an elected official already. So just make sure that messaging remains nonpartisan. You are not telling them who to vote for. You're just asking them to register to vote and to go vote on election day. A question from Veronica: how to navigate registration forms and polling sites for students who don't have a steady address, unhoused, or hopping around? That is a great question, and one that we're hearing a lot right now. Students who are maybe college students, the best approach is to encourage them to vote where they think it matters. I was just having this conversation with another partner recently. The only caveat with that is that you have to consider that maybe that student doesn't know where their vote matters the most. So let's say they're from Pennsylvania or another swing state, but they're attending school in Michigan. That's a great way to have a conversation with them about what a swing state is and why their vote may matter or have more weight in one state over the other. But don't assume that they know the answer to that kind of question. So I would say that that's where you should probably start. make sure that they are planning to actually vote, and then have them make that decision of where to register to vote based on where they think it might be most impactful. These are great questions. Thank you. Is there an organization, this is from Sally Roberts, is there an organization providing legal resources if we find some issues that people are having with registering that seem to be recurring? That's a great question. I believe we have some great resources that we can refer you to. So send us an email at info@nationalvoterregistrationday.org and we can provide those to you. That's info@nationalvoterregistrationday.org. Anonymous attendee, is there an office in DC where I can pick up materials? Absolutely. You should look up your local official election office and find out if they have like a particular pickup time, and just call them and ask them. Sometimes you can just do a walk-in if you're picking up maybe 50 to 100 forms, and it's no problem. But again, if you do have a big need for requesting forms, then you might want to call them and let them know in advance. So that they can let you know how much time it'll take before you can pick it up. But yes, there's local election offices all over the country that you can just go and pick up forms. Thank you. Stephanie said, we are finding barriers for individuals with disabilities due to many having a lack of official documentation. We are working to educate, but any advice about that barrier? Absolutely. We actually have a webinar coming up, which I just mentioned, on disabilities and creating inclusive environments for them to be able to register to vote and vote. So that would be a great resource for you. And we can also connect you with the National Disability Rights Organization. Disability Awareness Week, Voting Rights Awareness Week, I'm probably saying that wrong, is coming up actually. So there will be a lot of resources around that. And I'm happy to connect you, Stephanie, to make sure that you have those resources in hand. So send us an email at info@National Voter Registration Day, and I can make that connection for you. Thank you. Christian Green, in Louisiana, we have filed a preemptive letter with the Secretary of State and Commissioner of Elections asking them to make sure that Go Vote official registration site works on NVRD and other times, since it was down on NVRD in 2020 and on Election Day. Does NVRD do any official outreach to Secretaries of State? Yes, thank you for asking this question. One of our trusted partners is the National Association for Secretaries of State. We also partner with the National Association for State Election Directors. And both of those are trusted partners for very good reason. One, because they are the go-tos for providing voter registration for the country, but then also we're able to ask these types of questions. So yes, we do official outreach to the Secretaries of State. We do have some really great contacts with them. So we are able to make sure that they have plans in place for these types of issues that have come up, reoccurring, unfortunately, and to make sure that there's plans in place in preparation for NVRD. So we did have this conversation recently, and are super aware of the past issues to make sure that they don't happen again. Are we allowed to print voter registration forms instead of requesting them at a local election office? This answer depends on the state that you live in. So I would look at our state-by-state guide to make sure that you're allowed to do that. Some states do allow you to, and some states do not. So look at our state-by-state guide to make sure that you get the right answer. You can also call your local election office just to make sure. It doesn't hurt to just double check. Our organization serves communities with large amounts of undocumented individuals and families. Best practices to avoid spooking out anyone out of utilizing our services when they see voter registration and voter ID tables. Absolutely. So information and education is key here. You should know very clearly who you can register to vote and who you can't. And that's very important for you to know as someone who is doing the voter registration. That's information that you should have in advance. So that means having an open line of communication to ask them very clearly, are you a citizen? Do you have documentation? And making sure. So I used to work with youth who in high school, they didn't know if they had documentation. Sometimes they didn't know if they were a citizen. So the best advice was encouraging them to go home and ask before registering them to vote. So you want to make double sure so that you don't spook them out. But in terms of utilizing your services, voter registration should not spook them out, especially if you are doing your due diligence on the back end. You can talk to them about the community issues and the issues that they face that they should be voting for, but just verify that they are able to register to vote and vote. These are great questions. Thank you all. Are there social media materials available in Spanish or other languages? I don't believe we have social media materials available. However, we have our posters available in multiple languages, and those are available on our website. We have a couple of resources that are translated into Spanish, but we don't have any social media, unfortunately. Neva, apologize if I pronounce that incorrectly. We have a youth organization, the Bronx Youth Empowerment Program. Woo! Young people who are excited and volunteer to help. Because 13 of them are under 18, we are partnering each of them with an adult. That's awesome. So it sounds like you have a good plan in place. And that's also a great approach to get them to do peer-to-peer registration. So they'll learn from the adult, but then they also can relate to other folks in their age group and encourage them to register to vote. Patricia said, can we ask a sitting county clerk who is running for re-election to give a presentation on how elections are conducted in our county? We are a network of nonprofits. The network is conducting a drive. The network is not an organization of any kind, just a network. That's a great question. I don't want to advise you poorly here, but again, you want to make sure that any conversations that the county clerk is having is nonpartisan. So if he's giving or he or she is giving an overview in that presentation of how elections are conducted in a nonpartisan manner, so not leaning towards any particular party or advocating for re-election or anything like that, then you should be in the clear. But you can also check with your local elections office there to double check just to make sure. And Shirley asked, are we able to use NVRD's QR code? And how do we verify or document the number of people who register with us to indicate on our report? So that's a great question. Yes, you can absolutely use our QR code. However, we do not provide tracking. So we are not able to tell you how many folks registered under your code or who those folks are because we don't have that information. So you are able to use the code as an easy way to register voters, but we're not able to track any of their personal information. And Kara asked a clarification question. Isn't the fact that she would be doing a presentation a way of advancing them? Again, there are many elected officials rather, who do voter registration presentations, and they do them in a nonpartisan manner. So they're not telling you to vote for them. They're not telling you who to vote for or which party to vote for. There is a very tactful way to do voter registration. And if there's too much gray area for you, then you should use your discernment to not allow them to speak. And Veronica asked, can you fact check this data point? Oh boy, new estimates show that 8 million youth are aging into the electorate in 2024. Yes, I've heard that. Joining a diverse and politically active generation that can have major impact on elections. Yes, I can fact check that. I'm not sure if the number is 8 million, but I can definitely fact check that. And feel free to email us at info@National Voter Registration Day, and I can provide you with the stats that I find. Great. So it looks like that's all of our questions, and I think I might have got to all of those. Those are amazing. Thank you, guys. Are there any, oh, I see a few more coming in. If we have ordered materials from you in the past couple of weeks but have not received them yet, is a way to track this, is there a way to track the shipment? Yes, absolutely. We have the tracking codes for all of your, what this person is talking about is the posters and stickers that are mailed out. The deadline for the posters and stickers to be mailed out has unfortunately passed. So we're not able to issue any more packages. However, we can help you with tracking. So if you received a tracking number, you can email us if there's any issues or disputes with it, and we can try to resolve it with you. So send us an email at info@nationalvoterregistrationday.org. And Sally asked a similar question. You should have received a tracking number. So if you have not received that, please just send us an email. Great. Well, thank you so much for those amazing questions. I hope those were able to point you in the right direction as you're thinking about the next 6 days and what your plans look like. I see some thumbs up and some claps, so thank you. If there's any other questions that you guys have, please feel free to just send us an email, info@nationalvoterregistrationday.org. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. I know many of you are doing voter registration drives for the first time, and then many of you are doing them for like the 100th time. So if there's any question, no question is dumb. So don't feel like you can't ask, but we're happy to help you and make sure that you have the materials. Again, this presentation has been recorded, so we will be sharing it with you after the call. So you'll have access to this presentation as well as all of those key resources and links. So you'll be able to put together a voter registration drive, hopefully super easy, as long as you have your volunteers and you have all of your plans down for like picking up your forms. I do want to reiterate to look at that state-by-state guide so that you can know exactly when the voter registration deadlines are for your state. When you're collecting these forms on September 17th, you want to make sure that you are submitting the forms to your local elections office in a timely manner. So make sure you use that resource to confirm when those deadlines are. And we thank you so much for being part of this. I think there's, I just want to make sure I covered all of your questions. And it looks like we did. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to email us, info@nationalvoterregistrationday.org. We will see you on September 17th. And you are also invited to donate to NVRD if the opportunity is available. We have all of these resources available to you guys free and open to all. So your support is super duper greatly appreciated. This link will be shared with you. We will see you on September 17th. We're so excited to have you, and let us know if you have any questions. Send us an email to info@nationalvoterregistrationday.org. Thanks all.